Hi, my name is Romy Lawson and I'm Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Students.
And hi, I'm Michelle Pickard and I'm the Pro-Vice-Chancellor Learning and Teaching Innovation. We're both here today to have a little bit of a chat about artificial intelligence and what it means for learning and teaching at Flinders.
So Michelle, November the 30th and suddenly we had ChatGPT. Now it probably came about faster than we thought and also more sophisticated than we anticipated. And I think perhaps there are two ways of thinking at first. Is this a challenge and a disruptor that we should be a bit scared of? Or is this something that perhaps we can use and embrace in our learning and see it as our future? And this is something that people need to take into the workplace and so we need to use it as part of the education process. Where are we with our thinking at Flinders?
Romy, I think being the type of university that Flinders is, and also having conversations right around the university, we've really decided to embrace artificial intelligence and really focus on how can we prepare students for a world in which they're going to need to use artificial intelligence, but also to teach it as an academic literacy, just like anything else that we teach our students.
So it's great to hear that we're embracing it and we can see it as part of a learning tool, but surely there may be some cases where students look at using it for unfair advantage and inappropriately. So what are we doing about that at Flinders?
We always encourage our staff to develop authentic assessments and to decide whether they are permitting or not permitting the use of artificial intelligence in a way that's appropriate to the particular task or the assessment item and the learning that they want the students to achieve. So we've sent some really simple messages. If it is appropriate for students to use artificial intelligence in a task, we've got a green AI icon. And there we ask staff to teach students how to use artificial intelligence ethically in the completion of that task, and also how to acknowledge the use of AI. And sometimes it's appropriate for students to use artificial intelligence in a limited fashion, and we've got an amber icon for that. In those cases, we think it's really important for staff to let students know at what phase of the assessment item or what aspect of the assessment item they're permitted to use artificial intelligence. Maybe it's at the brainstorming phase, or maybe it's at the end in the editing phase, or both. And then finally, of course, there are some cases where it's not appropriate for students to use artificial intelligence at all. And for that, we've got the red icon. And in those cases, it's really important for staff to let students know that they're not permitted to use artificial intelligence and why they're not permitted, why it's not appropriate for that particular task.
So that's great. So staff have choice about how much artificial intelligence can be used in their different assessment tasks. And it's a really clear way to signal to students about how much or how little artificial intelligence that they can use. So Michelle, we know that most students don't have the intention to breach academic integrity, but there are some cases where it happens. So what processes and practices are we putting in place to try and identify and to follow up on any potential breaches?
Well, I think it's just the same as we do with all cases of potential failure to meet the academic integrity requirements. We have our software, our text matching software, which now has an additional element which also detects possible use of artificial intelligence. But it's all part of that really effective process of investigation, common for any other academic integrity breaches. And the academic integrity investigators are using their professional judgment and the investigative process to really identify, is there a breach or hasn't there been a breach? And then also to have an educative approach afterwards with both staff and students to try and prevent future breaches.
So Michelle, it's great. There's been lots of conversations, workshops, lots of involvement of people. Resources have been developed. We already had a policy in place that dealt with this. So can you just let people know where they can find all this rich information and perhaps what the next steps might be for us?
Well, there's a whole lot of resources that have been developed both for students and for staff. We've got a position statement which really summarises Flinders' position on the use of artificial intelligence for both students and staff. And there's also links for the staff and the student resources. And then, of course, as artificial intelligence becomes increasingly sophisticated, we're going to iterate further, we're going to develop further resources, and also really continue to collate all the exemplars from our staff members on how we can effectively use artificial intelligence in our learning and teaching.
Thanks, Michelle. It's great to hear everything that you and your team and the wider university community has been doing in this space. It's an interesting space, and keep watching to see where it goes next.